Welcome to the 1% Performance Podcast, coming to you from Combermary and Gadigal Country in Australia. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and we acknowledge the First Nations people of these lands. This is the podcast exploring how small changes make a big impact. I'm Mario Buchs, and together with my co-host Tim Buxton, we'll discover the unseen edges of peak performance to help athletes, teams and leaders unlock their exponential growth. And now, it's time to dive in and find the 1% that changes everything.
First of all, I have to say I love your baseball jersey, Mario. It's pretty cool. I'm jealous.
Yeah, I'd love. Oh, don't be.
It was your wife's
a good idea.
Brainchild, right?
It is absolutely 100% her brainchild. The only thing I did was order it, but the idea was hers. Yeah, I'm happy. It's like sometimes if you're in one field, and we discussed that earlier, you kind of get pigeonholed a little bit. Yes, we do a bit of running and we do this, that, and the other. But having running shirts, everybody has a running shirt, everybody has a polo shirt, everybody has a T-shirt. But I think walking around in a baseball shirt is a little bit different. I like the way it's got the buttons. You can do the different colors. And
yeah,
it came up
so
as we were in the States. No, it's good. It's maybe we're a trendsetter, and the company who did it, they're called Prism. The guy did a really good job, and he's reliable and stuff. So yeah, good. No, thanks for noticing.
It reminds me of that. The baseball team, the Oakland A's. They have the same colors. The Oakland A's, the Helvetica's colours of green, gold.
South Africa, I didn't know. If you're South African and you don't have a South African passport, you cannot enter the country. Very interesting. Found that out. Luckily.
I don't think you can enter Australia, even if you're Australian, without a valid passport, though.
Yeah, correct. Once you're Australian. Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Because you would need a re-entry visa. Yeah, that actually happened to me. I can tell you. That happened to me. I left Australia as an Australian citizen on my Swiss passport, and they gave me a slap on the wrist. They says, look, it's okay, but when you come back, you'll have to go into a different queue and we'll have to kind of check you a bit more. So I'm like, okay. So yeah, correct. So it's interesting. So you can't just, and I think that's correct because my passport wasn't ordered yet at the time. So anyway, but that's not why,
No, it sucks.
Having multiple nationalities sometimes.
I feel your pain. We've got the dual US and, it just means you have to keep both passports and they're like $400 a pop these days. The US, especially with the US, once you get the kind of exchange rate involved as well. But I brought Oakland A's up because there's the movie, The Moneyball. You remember that one with Brad Pitt in it? And when we think about the 1%ers, that is like, I think, the epitome example of an elite performance baseball, right? You've got all these games and it's probably one of the most statistic driven sports in the whole of the world. The amount of statistics
and team sport,
definitely. And there's just so many layers of nuance with so many stats you can analyze. And in that movie, it was so interesting because they get this whiz kid statistics guy in and build a team off of B grade, C grade players that just are easy and cheap. And of course, the Oakland A's isn't like the Yankees. It's not a club you dream of playing for as a kid. Obviously, unless sorry to all the Bay Area, San Francisco or Oakland people out there. Maybe if it's your hometown team, maybe, but certainly not if you're a kid growing up in anywhere else in the country. It wouldn't. And I think they're even moving to some other Las Vegas. I think Vegas gets all the washout teams. Anyway, but, just that ability to analyze and to do something unconventional. I think that's what I love about you, Mario. It's what I love about what you said. Let's do something different, unconventional, because you can't get that edge if you're just doing the same things everyone else is doing. If you're watching and listening to the same podcast. So hopefully you've found your way to us and you're not just listening to
Correct.
Andrew Huberman and all the other people and just getting the same
We
stuff.
can show you how to go into in a cold bath as well, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, mate.
We can do all that. Huberman is like the
Exactly.
man, But you can delete
Yeah.
that one now because the 20 minutes with us.
Found your
That's
way,
it.
and this has been the best 5 minutes of your podcasting perusal you've had all week.
Experience.
But what stood out to you in that film? This guy willing to go with, throwing things in the mix, experimenting. I think even in the midst of seasons, one of the things I find is so often we get short-term fixated on we have to win or this has to be successful, and we don't play the long game. Fortunately, with baseball, it's a little easier because there's like 180 regular season games. You can kind of experiment, throw things around. You're going to get injuries. You're going to have to make it to the end. I think the team that won the World Series had they won off their bullpen basically. They just had so many people rotating through, and that was their edge that they had to find and innovate throughout the season. So when you get short-term focused, right, you're only thinking about what I find is your time is against you. Whereas if you're long-term focused, the pressure of now isn't there. It's a willingness to stumble across the one thing that you never would have thought of had you not been brave enough to just give something a crack. You got an example in your life that you can think of, Mario, where you were? I've got a few from my kids' sporting expertise, but they've got a long way to go to get to your level of performance. Is there anything you've found in being willing to experiment, being willing to play the long game and try new different things that comes to mind?
I think that all my life, actually. I can't even tell you just one single thing. It's like every day. Everything's outside the box, every time. As an engineer, you start kind of, this is the way it is, then that's fine. But then you start experimenting in all walks of life. It's like, okay, how does this work? You can bring it into your daily habits. You can bring it across to your sport that you're doing. In my case, it's a bit of running where I'm like, okay, how would it be? I've already changed my running around again. There's running coaches overseas that I follow that are still doing things that have been done in the 60s, but they're now putting a twist on it to adapt to where we are now. And I think this short, mid, and long term is really good. I see the short term advantage just going to the next step. So you need to have these milestones. So you need to just look at, let's just get there.
You got to have mini battles. You've got to have like mini games within the game, right? And that breaks it down. And that enables you to say, look, it's like tennis, right? I might lose this game, but I haven't lost the set. And I'm going to try a few different things with my serve in this game. If it doesn't work out, great. But if it pays off and suddenly I find a weakness in my opponent by doing something a bit unconventional, maybe what they're not expecting from me, right? But again, in the long term, maybe 5 times out of 6, it wasn't going to work. But if that 1 time out of 6 it does, you found the exponential edge, haven't you? You've suddenly stumbled on the thing that's going to... And if you don't have the guts to do what you've done your whole life, out of the box, experiment,
you're just going to stay elite and you never peak.
Ooh, say that again. You'll stay elite, which sounds nice, but you'll never peak.
If you're comfortable. Correct.
Yeah, because the peak is a false peak, isn't it? It's a false horizon. If you've ever done climbing and you think you've got to the top and suddenly you see, holy crap, there's so much more to go. But you needed that peak to drive you to get to that point, right?
Yeah, you need to see the next.
To see the next peak. But if you just saw the big peak, you'd probably never start to begin with.
No. If you
But if
sit
you,
on the beach and you see Mount Everest, I don't think anybody's ever gone up there. You have those little mini battles you have to fight, altitude, oxygen, air pressure, and so on. Yeah, good point. Very
it
good.
would be so fun to bring someone who's summited Everest onto the podcast. If anybody knows somebody who has or wants to shoot them through, I would gladly
Or
love
Kilimanjaro.
Kilimanjaro. You there's K2, whatever. Done something
Yeah.
exceptional, because I think there's a lot to learn from that mountaineering, because again the conditions are just, if you're not willing to experiment, if you're not willing to think outside of the box, and it's in everything. You've got to just, when something just throws a curveball at you, you've got to know, I was waiting for this to happen. Most people, when the plans don't go to plan, I think it was Michael Phelps, the one hip routine he does before he swims a race is he visualizes everything going perfectly and what it's going to look like. But then he visualizes his goggles falling off. Then he visualizes something happening on the blocks, a couple of, false starts and everyone on edge. And he goes through all the terrible things that can happen and what he's going to do to just keep going. And I think
And then what did his coach do?
What?
He stood on his goggles deliberately.
Well, see, I told you I need you to be a bit meaner to me. And I'm going to need you, because I want to actually use the little time we've got left on our little podcast to, and if you want to, I think our audience needs to hear you really summarize what we were talking about there, about thinking outside the box. But before we get to that and we finish off the episode, I'm going to need you, Coach. You got me through the 150-kilometer challenge that we did for the non-profit we run that empowers refugee waymakers, and that was 150 kilometers during our Move to Belong campaign, where we invited people from all around the world to move during, it was United Nations Week, and during a week I ran 150 kilometers, but I did it with 150 minutes of sleep per day. That's about 2 hours of sleep per day is what I ended up getting. Most grueling thing I've ever done physically. Emotionally and mentally, I was fried and probably felt the after effects, as you know, of fog and haze for about a month afterwards. It was actually quite interesting when you subject your brain to that little bit of, I think it was like I was awake for 150 hours of the 164 hours of during that week. So it was a bit gnarly, and the brain really needed a break. This year, 2025, Coach, I'm going to be doing the same challenge, maybe stick it up a notch, 10Ks, because you can't just do the same as last time. 160 kilometers, but I'm actually going to fly back to Iraq, where we lived. I'm going to fly into Erbil, and then I'm going to drive into Mosul. We're going to need special security clearance to get in there. I've got some friends I know that will be able to arrange that. Hopefully I won't be alone, so hopefully I'll have a couple of people to journey along, whether it be people from there that join me. But I'm going to run the 160 kilometers from Mosul, where many of the refugees we took in also fled. I'm going to hopefully visit them in their town along the way and say, hey, Chani Bashi, catch up with them after more than 7 years that I haven't seen them. And I'm going to run to Saran, the town that they fled, and I'm going to do it with 160 minutes of sleep for the whole period. So we'll probably break it up over 4 days, mate. 4 days, about a marathon a day to get to Saran in the mountains. So the terrain is going to be huge. There's 3 mountain ranges to traverse and a gorge. It's going to be in the middle of September, so we'll probably still be in the 40°C heat. It'll be approaching. It'll get a bit cooler as we get to Saran, because the mountain range of the Ziggurat mountain ranges from Iran, as we about get close about 20 miles from the Iranian border, another 30 miles from the Turkish border, that you'll see these snow-capped mountains. It's nice sight to see, but it still is going to be really hot. And we'll take a few stops on the way, and we're going to relive this journey in an even more immersive way. And I'm going to need your help to get me through this. So, Coach, get me back in shape. I've had too much
You like
Christmas
a challenge,
pudding.
huh? And I like a challenge. Hey, look, but you've not been standing still. But no, this sounds really, really exciting. I have to say, this is what adventures are made of. I'm excited for you already, just hearing this and listening to you. And I know this is a podcast on its own, or probably a podcast series of the whys and the thinking behind it, because this is not something, knowing you now, that you get up and say, let's do this. You know exactly. You've already explained to me. I already know in my mind what this journey looks like. You've explained that so well, and I know the audience will also have a good understanding, because we all have pictures in our mind, and this is definitely a challenge, and from a coaching perspective, if I put that hat on, you've got the heat, you've got the distance, you've got the lack of sleep, you've got the elevation, you've got the altitude. Yeah. Then you've got obviously the mental fortitude that people need to work on. And then also the temperature at night can go down, but obviously, these are all. But then you've got the nutrition aspect. You don't always have everything available. So definitely a huge challenge for you, and a different challenge. And that's what excites me, just listening to what you say. The 7-day with 120 or 150 minutes of sleep. Yeah, it's good that you know how that feels like. And I think it's also reasonable to do it over 4 days as opposed to trying to do it over 7 again, because you need to enjoy the journey as well. People always think, and I watch a lot of these videos, and I know people who've done stuff where like 60 Ks a day in Thailand, and, a friend of mine or an associate of mine, he just ran through Thailand in the heat and the humidity and stuff for a good cause.
Oh, the humidity would be wretched.
Yeah, so these are so people like that, I tip my hat. So this stuff is made for legends. I'll tell you that now.
The only thing I need to figure out is, am I going to be able to get you over there? You were telling me a little bit ago that you're looking to do a double header in the latter part of this year, and there's only so many ultras you can do in consecutive months. What's your second half of the year look like, Mario? Are we going to be able to get you over at least to ride your bicycle alongside me or something? I don't know.
I'd love to. I can tell you that now. My mouth is already watering. Yes, this is, of course, I live for these kind of things. Certainly in a capacity where I can help you. No doubt. There is no doubt.
Yeah. So what are you up to? What have you got? What's your plans for the
I've
year
only just heard
coming up?
Look, I entered a few lotteries. I didn't get lucky. I entered the big ones in the US, as I do every year.
Yeah.
Didn't get in, which is also okay. That's just how it is. I had 32 tickets for Western States. That's okay. This year I'll have.
They're just the sanctioned ones. You do your own crazy ones without.
Correct. Yeah. So the idea is, so you're talking about the second half. I'm waiting to hear back from the team at UTMB in France to see if they allow me to run the Ultra Trail de Mont Blanc, which circumnavigates
Mont Blanc,
which is the biggest mountain in Europe. It goes through 3 countries. It's 176 kilometers with about 10,000 meters of climbing.
So it's not just a nice watch brand. It's a legit.
It's the one.
Mountain.
No, correct. It exists. Yes, it exists. And as a Swiss boy, it's kind of a special race, although it starts and finishes in Chamonix, which is in France. And then I want to enter Coast to Cozy again at the same time.
Yeah.
Which they pick in August. So these are all things. I want to do the double header. I have a coach as well myself. So this is something I would have to sell to him as well. But look, first and foremost, this is all great. My ideas, of course. And thanks for asking. But first and foremost, I need to have a healthy body. So I've made a few changes. I don't want to be injured again. As an ultra distance runner, and you're always on that verge of being injured and having something, although you look after your body as best as possible. We spoke about thinking outside the box. These are things I am doing with nutrition, with my own training. Luckily, I have a good coach in Gary Mullins who understands this as well, and he likes changing things up. So I'm in good hands. Yeah, I love 2025. It's already been a great year for me.
Yes.
There's been some good things that have happened, and now hearing what you've just said 3.5 minutes ago excites me even more for this year, you know?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be epic, and I've got something I'm going to talk about in the next episode, but it's about having a good beginning, a good end. But for me, the hardest part is the middle part, and having a solid middle. And we'll talk a bit about that in our next episode. There is a teaser for you. I want to know what your goals are for this year, right? We want to hear what people are setting out to achieve, what's on their calendar, and how you can maybe not just approach it the same way you've always done. Like you said, you're going to have to approach things a little different. We all have to do. Our age, our injuries, all these different things continually force us to constantly think outside the box. Watch Moneyball. It's a great movie. But just remember, I think the reminder for us today is experiment. Play the game within the game. Don't get caught up in the long game, in the end result. Realize that there's lots of little battles and lots of little strategies and ways that you can uncover that exponential edge by being willing to have the guts to step outside the box. Thank you, Mario, for being so kind in your support of this exciting new year ahead. I'm excited for what the 1%ers is going to do too, mate. It's going to be a great year for us. Any last words to say to our listeners?
I think forget elite. Let's aim for peak performance.
Mic drop. Thanks for tuning in to the 1%ers podcast. That's a wrap for another episode. And we're proud to be recording from Australia on Kombumerri and Gadigal country. And we honour the traditions and knowledge of the First Nations people and pay our respects to elders, past and present. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. We want to hear from you, your questions or topics you would like us to cover, and you can easily do that in the Spotify app. And for those of you that are ready to discover your peak performance edge today, just head on over to our website. That is top.coach. That's TOPP.coach. And start unlocking your unlimited potential with us today. We would love to work with you. And that's it for now. Until next time, what are you waiting for? Get after it.